Yo guys, what's up? It's Tube 101 here, coming at you guys today with another video. And in today's video, we are doing episode 3 of ranking my 400 game collection. And so we're doing episode 3, the final 16. So we have each games lined up in a 16 game tournament, treating each other with 10 different criterias. We'll get into all of this in a second, how they were ranked, what the criterias are, and then we'll get in straight into the video. Before we get into the video, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for the support. Whether you guys watched all 3 of these episodes or if you just watch my videos in general, I really appreciate the support. And if you guys like this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Now let's just get right into the video. Alrighty guys, so first of all, I'm just going to explain the tournament for you guys. So on the left side, we have the North Conference, and so it's 1, 8, 4, 5, 3, 6, and 2 and 7th seed. And so what I mean by that is, so north just means north of my collection on Xbox, so the top half of the alphabetical order from the 16. And so if you go over to like the 16 games I picked out, so like the first seed, the second seed, the third seed, and it just goes right in alphabetical order basically. And so we have, so yes, so it's just in alphabetical order, but I put it as a real tournament. So 1 is up here, and then 2, the second one is right here. And then we have the South Conference, which is over here. This is the bottom half of alphabetical order from the 16. So this is also 1 and 2. And then 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. Alrighty, so now we're just going to go over the criteria really quickly. So we have how users rated them on Google, the graphics of the game, how impactful the game was on my life in general, the replayability of a game, the smoothness of a game, character relationship, how I felt towards the characters of the game and character development, how the game sounded. Does the game have good sound effects? Does the game have a good soundtrack? How does the game sound overall when I have the headphones on? How original was the game? How challenging was this game? So what I'm looking for is a game that was perfectly challenging. Not overly difficult, but not overly easy either. And then, how good of a community does this game have? So it's not just based off of which games do I like better, as there's an actual scoring system to it, and all of these scores are going to be out of 100, and then we're going to add up each and every score, and then whoever has the highest score out of the 2 in the bracket. So as you can see, like Apex Legends is playing Kingdom Hearts in the first round. So either out of Apex or Kingdom Hearts, whoever has the highest score is moving on to the next round until we reach the finals. Alright, I hope you guys understand that. So like I said, let's just get right into the first round. Alrighty, so first of all, we have Apex Legends. Alrighty guys, so Apex Legends did not have a Google rating when I googled Apex Legends, but it does have a Xbox Store rating that is equal to 74 out of 100. The reason I'm doing Google rating instead of Xbox rating, first of all, because that encompasses every single both PC, if it's on the Nintendo Switch, if it's on the PlayStation, and if it's on the Xbox, it'll all go into the Google rating. And also, Google is out of 100 and Xbox is out of 5, so then you have to times it by 20. And it's sort of inaccurate, but it has a 3.7 stars out of 5, which is equal to 74 out of 100. Alrighty guys, so going into the graphics, for Apex Legends, I'm going to have to go with a 82 out of 100. How impactful was Apex Legends? I'm going to have to go with a 52 out of... No. I'm going to have to go with a 40 out of 100. Apex Legends has not been that impactful at all in my life. The replay ability of Apex Legends is extraordinarily high because it's a battle royale, strictly multiplayer game. So I'm going to give the replayability a 89 for Apex Legends. How smooth is Apex Legends? So how smooth are the controls? How good does the gameplay feel? How good does the shooting feel overall? How smooth does the game run? Does it lag at all? Is there any sort of bugs in Apex Legends? And for that, I'm going to have to give it 85 out of 100. Character relationship. So this is just how good the characters are developed and how good of a plot does each and every character have to them. Do I know the character's story? Do the characters actually matter in the game? For that, I'm actually going to be giving it an 80 as well. So sound wise, how good does Apex Legends sound? And I think that Apex Legends sounds pretty good, so I think I'm going to go ahead and give Apex Legends a 92 on sound. How original was Apex Legends? Guys, Apex Legends came out when a whole bunch of other Battle Royale games are coming out. It's not over the top original, but they did add operators to Battle Royale, and it's really not like any other Battle Royale out there. Or at least not completely like every Battle Royale out there. So I'll give it a 68 on originality. How challenging is Apex Legends? Now, with every single Battle Royale, there can only be one winner or one winning squad. And so for that reason, it is pretty challenging because if there's only going to be one winner, then it's very unlikely that you actually win the game. But it's not overly challenging to make it far in the game and it's not as challenging to win as other battle royales out there. So I'm going to give it a 48 for challenging. And how good of a community does Apex Legends have? I'm going to be honest, I don't have that much of experience with the Apex Legends community in general. And so I'm just going to give it a 50. Alrighty guys, so 74 plus 82 plus 40 plus 89 plus 85 plus 80 plus 92 plus 68 plus 48 plus 50, it equals to 708. Alright guys, so Apex Legends, if you add all of those numbers up, you come to the total number of 708. Alrighty guys. So now let's compare this to Kingdom Hearts. So Google Hearts is off to a really good start with a 89 Google rating compared to Apex's 74. The graphics, I think the graphics can be somewhat plain, especially if you're actually playing the game and not inside of a cut screen. But it still is really interesting graphics. You're always in an interesting location, but there's just not a whole lot of detail to those locations, if you know what I mean. There's not fine details. It's not all, like sandpapered, completely smoothed out maps and everything like that. It's sort of dated graphics in my opinion. which is like not in a good way, not like the game came out a whole long ago. I'm saying like compared to when the game came out, I think the graphics were a little bit dated, not too much, but they still were interesting graphics, and they still definitely looks good, and the characters look good, and so for that I'm going to give it a 75 on graphics. How impactful was Kingdom Hearts? Once again, this was not a very impactful game at all for me. And so I think I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm going to give it a 25 on impactfulness, because it definitely was not very impactful for me. It was just characters I knew growing up. So it was sort of impactful in that way, but playing it wasn't that impactful for me. Replayability of Kingdom Hearts for me is not very high, because I feel like once you've played through it once, and once you've experienced those characters again, going back and playing it again doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So it definitely is a story mode based game, and it's one of those story modes where you're going to be wanting to play it once, and then after you play it once, you don't really necessarily have to play it again. And so once again, I'm going to give it a 40, and so Apex Legends takes a huge lead on that. How smooth is Kingdom Hearts? Once again, it's really not very smooth, but it is smooth enough. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 65 for smoothness. So Apex Legends is running away with the lead. Character relationship, obviously all of these are famous characters from Disney and anime, so you're going to know all the characters, and so this is probably going to be a 97 out of 100, because you can't get more knowledgeable characters than in Kingdom Hearts. So that's obviously what they sell themselves on, is the characters. How good is the sound in Kingdom Hearts? Honestly, I think the sound is a little bit too Disney-esque. It's a little bit too animated of a sound for me, if that makes sense. It's just a little bit too much in general going on with the sound. And so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a 68 on sound. How original of an idea was Kingdom Hearts? Now, this is once again a huge area in which Kingdom Hearts kind of sells itself on, because there's definitely no other games like it. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 92 for originality. How challenging was Kingdom Hearts? So a lot of Kingdom Hearts is very guided gameplay. Like, you sort of always know what you have to do in Kingdom Hearts. There's lots of like different cut screens and stuff in Kingdom Hearts, and so it's not too challenging, but it's not like boring like a kid's game either. There are some different like parts they actually have to play and actually do stuff in. So once again, yeah, I'll give it about that 50 for challenging. So the Kingdom Hearts doesn't have a community, because it's not an online video game. It definitely has an online community as far as like social media, websites, and people talking about it. So I'll go ahead and give it a 15 for that. Alrighty. So Kingdom Hearts. If we add all of these totals up, 89 plus 75 plus 25 plus 40 plus 65 plus 97 plus 68 plus 92 plus 50 plus 15, it is equal to 616 points for Kingdom Hearts, compared to 708 for Apex Legends. And so we have Apex Legends moving on to the next round. So congratulations to Apex Legends for being our first winner. Alrighty guys, so for the second game of the tournament, we have Dragon and we have Far Cry 5. Alright guys, so Dragon has a Google rating of 91, and it's off to a very good start. Graphics wise, is something that Dragon sells itself on. It's something I've mentioned already in the first 2 episodes of Dragon. It's a very beautiful game. And so Alright, guys, so for graphics, I'm going to be having to give Dragoon a 95. How impactful was Dragoon? It, it definitely has some impactful moments to it, some impactful scenery to it. I think for impactfulness, I'm going to have to give it a 68. Replayability, it's definitely not a game that you definitely have to replay, but it is a very beautiful game, so you might want to go back into it and look at the scenery and the graphics again. So I'll give it a 35 for replayability because it's just a story mode game, so you don't have to replay it. How smooth was Dragoon? It was a pretty smooth game, so I'll go ahead and give it an 80 for smoothness. There was no major problems with Dragoon. Character relationship in Dragoon. I think they could have made it to where you felt a stronger connection to the character you're playing as and to some of the smaller characters that are mentioned throughout the game. Because there's sort of a lot of different characters that are mentioned throughout the game, but you never really get to know those characters. And so that's a major problem. And so I'm going to give it a 67 for character relationship. Now, how good did Dragoon sound? I'll go ahead and give it a 75 for sound. It was really good, but throw something like spectacular sound to it. How original was Dragoon? It's a very complicated question. It's basically just it's basically just a walking simulator, so it's not super original, but the entire map and the entire idea behind it were very original. And so I'm going to once again give it a 70. How challenging was Dragoon? It was not that challenging as it's just, again, a walking simulator, but trying to find where you need to go at certain points and trying to figure out what was happening at certain points was sort of challenging, which sort of gave the game its challenging aspect to it, which I really enjoyed how challenging it was. And when I say how challenging it was, I mean it wasn't too challenging, but exactly how challenging it was, the exact amount of challenging to it was nice. And so I'm definitely going to give it 80 for challenging. Dragoon has absolutely no community. This is a single player game with no online community presence whatsoever. So it gets a 0. Alrighty, guys. So this looks like what might be our highest one yet, but it did get a 0. So 91 plus 95 plus 68 plus 35 plus 80 plus 67 plus 75 plus 70 plus 80 plus 0. Alright, guys, so Dragoon is coming in at 661. Alrighty, and its competitor is Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5 has a very similar Google rating to Dragoon at 92. Graphics wise, I would probably have to put yeah, I'll give Far Cry 5 a 87 overall on graphics. How impactful was Far Cry 5 on my life? I think I'm going to go ahead and give Far Cry 5 a 60 on impactfulness. Actually, I'll go ahead and bump that up to 65. How much replayability does Far Cry 5 have? Well, it did have an arcade mode that was online. It did have 3 long DLCs, and it did have a relatively long story mode to it. So, and I actually did play through Far Cry 5 twice, I believe, or at least I played through it part way twice. So I guess replayability is going to be pretty high. And so I'll go ahead and give it a 75 for replayability. How smooth was Far Cry 5? Now, I think this is where it sort of suffered a lot, and so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 60 for how smooth it was. Character relationships, there were so many different characters that you sort of got to know throughout the game, but you really got to know the main characters and the main people who you were trying to fight, and they really did build a lot of time sort of giving these people their own community, uh, and a whole bunch of development went into the characters. And so I'm going to go ahead and give an 88 for character relationship. Now, the Far Cry 5 soundtrack was one of the best soundtracks in any game whatsoever. It's definitely a very famous soundtrack. You can find lots of covers of the soundtrack on YouTube and whatever. The guns sounded alright, the driving sounded alright, everything sounded pretty good. And yeah, so I'm going to have to give a 90 to the sound. How original was Far Cry 5? I would say it was extraordinarily an original game. Original guns, an original map, original ideas, the whole cult thing, the main female enemy was really an original character. I'm forgetting her name right off the top of my head. So for originality, I'm going to have to go ahead and give it a 93. How challenging was Far Cry 5? It's once again was a pretty perfect amount of challengingness to it. So I'll give it a 93 for challenging. And for community, it didn't really necessarily, because the online never really picked up to it, didn't have the best community whatsoever, but it did have a community, so I'll go ahead and give it a 35 for community. Alrighty, so 92 plus 87 plus 65 plus 75 plus 60 plus 88 plus 90 plus 93 plus 93 plus 35. Alrighty guys, so Far Cry 5 is coming in at 778. Alright guys, so the next matchup is going to be The Crew 2 and Grand Theft Auto 5. The Crew 2 actually has a Google rating of 94, so it's the highest Google rating. Graphics, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 79 because some cities are very underdeveloped. Some areas of the map look very underdeveloped, but the cities that they want you to be exploring, the cities that all the events are in, and the major cities that they actually tried to make on par with the cities in real life, those do look really nice and they are fun to explore, and the cars and the boats and everything do look nice, but it's not a very photogenic game at all, so I'm giving it a 79. How impactful was The Crew 2? I'll go ahead and give it a 25 or a 25 for impactfulness because it does involve the entire United States and it is very replayable because there's so many different events. So impactfulness is going to give it a 25. I didn't mean to say replayable. I'm just saying like there's so many different things inside the game that take place. That's what I meant to say. Replayability wasn't the next word. And so how replayable is The Crew 2? Like I said, there's so many different events, and since you can explore the United States, and since it's a racing game, it definitely is extraordinarily replayable. So I'm going ahead and going to give it a 90 for replayability. How smooth is The Crew 2? It's really not very smooth, but it's smooth enough, so I'll go ahead and give it a 50. Character relationship in The Crew 2, I'm going to give a 15. I couldn't tell you anything about any of the characters in The Crew. For sound in The Crew 2, I've definitely seen better racing games, or better sound in different racing games, and so I think I'm going to go ahead and give the sound a 50 as well. Originality, since it takes place in the entire United States and no other racing game has been able to do that. And since there are a whole bunch of different original events that take place, I think it's fair to give The Crew 2 a 70. How challenging is The Crew 2? I think it's going to go with a 68. The Crew 2's community, The Crew 2 does have a decent community. I've done like nationwide races with The Crew 2's like community. I've been in parties with the Crew 2's community before. It's been pretty decent experience with their communities. So I'll go ahead and give the Crew 2 community a 75 out of 100. Alright guys, so this is a pretty low rated game in my opinion. Or actually, I don't know. I have no clue what these ever are going to calculate to be. There's way too many numbers for them to be in my head. But 94 plus 79 plus 25 plus 90 plus 50 plus 15 plus 50 plus 70 plus 68 plus 75 is going to be 616. So it's actually exactly tied with Kingdom Hearts. Let me know down in the comments, would you guys agree that Kingdom Hearts and The Crew 2 deserve the exact same score? Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on getting the same score. Alright guys, and now we have the big one, the big dog in the house. It's going to be very hard to beat. Grand Theft Auto 5. Alrighty, so Grand Theft Auto 5 has a Google user rating of 95. It's starting off strong. Graphics, for the year that it released, it has extraordinarily graphics and it's still extraordinarily photogenic. I'm constantly finding myself taking different screenshots of either my character, my cars, or just the city in general. And GTA 5, it's so photogenic, it's insane. And so I'm going to have to give that 95 as well. How impactful has GTA 5 been on my life? I'd say all the times playing it with friends and all the different missions that have built friendships through the years, going on heist and having to trust people to get you away from the police, doing robberies and trying to run from the police with your friends, driving and ensuring that your friends aren't going to crash your car and stuff like that. It definitely is a friendship building game, and just in general, all the different missions and working for the money and stuff like that and driving around Los Angeles and a major city has been extraordinarily impactful. And so I'm going to be giving this a 88. Very good score so far. Replayability. I honestly would not say that the story mode has a whole lot of replayability to it, but the online has a ton of replayability to it. You constantly have to earn more money, buy yourself nicer things, new stuff that comes out. There's been constant updates throughout the years. So once again, I'm going to give it a 95. How smooth is Grand Theft Auto 5? It's once again very smooth. I'm going to give it an 85 for smoothness. Character relationships in GTA 5. I think all the story mode characters were extraordinarily well done. I think the character that you play as does sort of have enough of a character to your main character in the online, as you can own whatever cars you want. You can own your own CEO, so you're very allowed to make your own person in GTA 5, and so your online character is very developed towards your own gameplay. And so I'm going to give that a 93 as well for character development. How good does GTA 5 sound? Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the radio. I wish I would have updated the radios maybe more throughout the years. So I'm not a huge fan of the radio in GTA 5. There's not a whole lot of good music in my personal opinion. The soundtrack isn't that great. maybe the guns could sound better. And so I think this is really where GTA lacks is the sound. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 78 on sound. So how original was GTA 5? And now they just basically copied their own idea because there's been so many different GTAs because there's been more than 5 GTAs. There's been San Andreas, Vice City, different GTAs throughout the years that don't have a number on it. So I think since they keep on repeating the exact same idea over and over and over again, and people keep asking for the same idea over and over again, that sort of takes it down a notch. But no other brand could do a GTA. And so, actually, I think a lot of different brands could do parts of GTA. I think it's just all a bunch of different games basically stacked on top of each other. And so for originality, though, I probably will give it a 70. How challenging is Grand Theft Auto 5? Parts of it can be very challenging. I think it is very fun to try to beat, though. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 60 for challenging. Community, I think GTA 5 has a large community, but I find it very difficult to communicate with their community. I don't see them on their mics a lot in game chat. There's not a whole lot of voice communication going on there. But with the heists and stuff, with having to communicate with people and the times that you do it, it could be nice. You definitely could make friends on GTA, like I previously stated. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and give the community a 65. We have 95 plus 95 plus 88 plus 95 plus 85 plus 93 plus 78 plus 70 plus 60 plus 65 is equal to the highest score so far with 824, making it the clear winner of round 1. Alrighty guys, and that leaves us to the last match of round 1 for the North, and it is going to be Black Ops 3 versus Hitman 2. Alright guys, so let's get into Black Ops 3, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. So it has a Google user rating of 90. I think the graphics are really good. I really like how the maps look. It's very colorful, very eye candy sort of game. I just like how rainbowy the game sort of is. Tons of different colors. It's all over the rainbow with different maps. You have naturist maps, and you also have very futuristic maps. So I'm going to go ahead and give it 85. How impactful was Black Ops 3 on my life? Now, I think Black Ops 3 was the second most impactful game in this tournament, and it was very, very impactful on my life. It was one of the main things that led me to creating a YouTube channel and start creating content. It really helped me develop friendships over the years, and so I'm going to have to give impactfulness a 97 out of 100 for impactness. Replayability of Black Ops 3. I think any Call of Duty has a lot of replayability if you get ends. If you enjoy Call of Duty has a ton of replayability. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it an 87 for replayability. How smooth was Black Ops 3? There were certain features I didn't really like with the smoothness, such as the brecci. Perhaps there wasn't too much camping, but there was a little bit. Laying down on the ground kind of sucked. There was major lag spikes in Black Ops 3, which was a pretty major problem. So, but overall, it was a really smooth Call of Duty for a futuristic Call of Duty. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 70. Character relationships. Now, if you guys don't remember, there were different operators. I think there's about 10 different operators in Black Ops 3, which makes it really unique to the other Call of Duties, because I think it's the only Call of Duty that has different operators that actually matters, and different operators with different abilities. And the operator you go really will be making a difference for your team, and especially in different game modes. But character relationship, you don't actually feel anything towards these characters. But for a shooting game, having characters definitely makes a difference. And so once again, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 65. Actually, I was going to say once again a 70, but I'm going to give characters a 65. How good was the sound? I think the sound for Call of Duty was really good. It had decent, lobby music or whatever, decent gun sounds for a Call of Duty. In my opinion, had one of the better gun sounds for a Call of Duty game. But I'm going to go ahead and give it an 80 for sound because there's nothing spectacular about it. How original it was, Black Ops 3. Black Ops 3 was one of 3 futuristic Call of Duties. Well, I think 4 if you're counting Black Ops 4, but that wasn't too futuristic. It was just barely into the future, but it was really with Infinite Warfare as one of the 2 extraordinarily futuristic Call of Duties, so it was a pretty original idea. I don't think anyone has really done anything else like Call of Duty Black Ops 3 since. And so it was definitely really original on Call of Duty's part to come up with that. I'll go ahead and give it an 85. How challenging is Black Ops 3? I think that's one of the best parts about it was the challenging aspect to it and trying to get good at it. So I'll go ahead and give that an 80. And the Black Ops 3 community, it was one of like the last CODs with like a super great community in my opinion. And so I'll give the Black Ops 3 community a 75 as well. Alrighty, so 90 plus 85 plus 97 plus 87 plus 70 plus 65 plus 80 plus 85 plus 80 and plus 75 brings it to 814 points. Alright, and next is Hitman 2. Hitman 2 has a Google rating of 95. So it's tied with the highest Google rating. I think the graphics looked really good in all the Hitmans. I'll go ahead and give the graphics a 85. How impactful was Hitman on my life though? Hitman was not very impactful at all, but it was a little bit sort of. I'll give it a 20. How replayable is Hitman? I think Hitman 2 has a extraordinarily high replayability rate for a story mode based game. But with that being said, it doesn't have any sort of multiplayer, but it does have different sort of challenges that sort of constantly come out. So replayability, I'll give it a 60. How smooth was Hitman 2? I'll give smoothness a 90 for Hitman 2. Character relationship, you don't really get to know anything about 007, the guy you're playing as. You don't really know anything about the other characters except for the little sort of cutscenes before the missions. But you don't ever feel a strong connection to anyone in the game. And so I'm going to go ahead and give Hitman 2 a 15 because I feel like it could have stronger character relationships. How good was the sound? I feel like the sound in Hitman 2 is extraordinarily dramatic in parts. It's definitely okay in other parts, but it never gets above okay, I would say. I don't think it ever really gets extraordinarily. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 50 for sound. How original was Hitman 2? Hitman is obviously a very original. Well, not really, because it's just a stealth shooter game. So there's tons of different other stealth. There's Sniper Elite, sort of there's Sniper. There's Assassin's Creed, which is sort of stealthy, and so originality. It's sort of a similar game with a whole bunch of makeup put on it, but I'll still give it an 80. How challenging was Hitman 2? Well, you buy Hitman 2 for the challenging aspect. That's what they sold the game was how challenging it was and how fun it was to sort of solve that puzzle and try to get your way through the game. And so for challenging, I'll go ahead and give it a 95 overall. And community, I've never had any sort of experience with anyone who's played Hitman 2, and so I have to give it a 0. Alrighty. So, 95 plus 85 plus 20 plus 60. See, we have a 20 and we have a 0. So it got hit in two major spots, really. Plus 90 plus 15, another really low score, actually. So 3 spots. Plus 50 plus 80 plus 95 and plus 0. So it ends with a score of 590. So Black Ops 3 totally takes away the win. 590. Easy win for Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Alrighty guys, so moving into the second round, we have Apex Legends, Far Cry 5, Grand Theft Auto 5, and Call of Duty Black Ops 3. That is for the North Conference. Alrighty guys, so now we are moving into the Southern Conference, round 1. Alright guys, so the first seed is Madden 22. Alright guys, Madden 22 has a extraordinarily low Google rating at only 42% of users liking the game. Sports games tend to have a really low rating though. Graphics, I mean, Madden is just Madden. It's just a football field overall. But with that being said, I feel like it doesn't necessarily have even spectacular graphics for a sports game. I feel like 2K22 has significantly better graphics. And so but I feel like Madden does look nice. It definitely is playable in that aspect of the graphics. And so, yeah, I really think that I'm going to go with a 70 for Madden's graphics. How impactful was Madden on my life? Madden was very impactful on my life. It really got me into football. It let me learn all the different players' names, all the different teams, insides and outs. I know all the different playbooks. I know how to really build the team. Oh shoot. I know how to really build a team. I know all sorts of these different football things because of Madden, and Madden has also let me build on some friendships in the past, and so it's been very, very impactful in my life. I've also had numerous YouTube videos that have been Madden. Some of them have done extraordinarily well, at least in my aspects, so hundreds of views in Madden videos, so it definitely has had a large impact, so I'm going to give it an 85 for impactful. Replayability on Madden is extraordinarily high just because it's an NFL game, and if you're playing a sports simulator and you like that sport, and the sports simulator is okay, it automatically has a high replayability, and so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 80, or actually, I'll bump it up to a 90. Yeah, a 90. I was going to give it an 85 at first, but I'll bump it up to a 90. How smooth is Madden? I feel like there's a lot of bugs and glitches in Madden first and foremost, but a lot of times if you're catching a ball sort of on the sideline close to the out of bounds play, it will give it to you when you shouldn't have it, and it won't give it to you when you clearly should have it, and both parties will agree that Madden made the wrong decision. So smoothness, I'm going to have to give a 50. It is smooth overall, but there's just so many times where it does something wrong and both parties agree that it was wrong. Character relationship is probably a 15, because here's the thing, they do have a career mode, but there is nothing to your character in career mode. You're just sort of playing the game and working your way through seasons in career mode. You don't actually have a personality or anything, and it's significantly less than 2K's career mode, once again, just like the graphics. So the sound in Madden, it has a very limited soundtrack. It's only like 15 songs long on the soundtrack. They don't spend any sort of money on in-lobby music. I guess rightfully so, but I feel like they should definitely spend probably double the amount of money getting double the amount of songs, but that's just my opinion. And you can use free music, and they don't even use like free sample music that's good in Madden at all. So, um, I don't know if a game can actually do that. They probably can't. That's my bad. But still, sound is very poor. They have a very limited soundtrack, and uh, ooh, they have a very limited soundtrack. So Madden 22 has a very limited soundtrack, and ooh, it's just not great sounds overall. They do have an announcing system. I really like the announcers in Madden, but that's about all. So I'm going to go ahead and give the sound a 40. How original is Madden? It's not original at all. Probably a 25 because everyone can make an NFL game. Everyone can sort of figure out the modes that are in that game. It's not like necessarily rocket science that people would want to play an NFL game. How challenging is Madden? Since it's a 1v1 sort of multiplayer mode, it can be very challenging because you constantly have to adapt to what your opponent is doing and try to figure out how to beat every single person in an entirely different way. So it definitely is challenging in a fun way, so I'll give that a 70. The Madden community, so I feel like there's a lot of tryhards in Madden. There's a very sort of lot of there's I don't know how to explain it. I guess there's sort of like a lot of smug people in Madden. There's a lot of people who want to win, want to get the edge up on you. And so, like I said, it's a game of constantly trying to beat one other person. So there's going to be a lot of toxicity in Madden. However, there are a lot of players with mics. You definitely can meet people in Madden. You definitely can grind Madden with people. I've met a ton of friends off of Madden. So I'm going to go ahead and give the community a 65. Alrighty, so Madden is going for a very, very low score. Even though I really enjoy... So Madden is going for a really low score, even though I really enjoy playing Madden. And it is one of my favorite games, but I just have to be honest on all these sort of different aspects. So 42 plus 70 plus 85 plus 90 plus 50 plus 15 plus 40 plus 25 plus 70 and plus 65. So yeah, guys, Madden is actually the lowest game so far with a score of 552 in the entire tournament. Alright guys, the next game is The Wolf Among Us by Telltale Games. Alrighty guys, I could not find a Google user score for The Wolf Among Us. However, on Xbox it is 4.7 stars out of 5, which would translate to 94 out of 100. The graphics for The Wolf Among Us, it is sort of a it's supposed to be a comic book sort of graphics. It's supposed to look like a comic book. And so the artwork is decent, but it is a older game. And so it's sort of outdated at this point, even as a graphic book sort of thing, or a comic book sort of thing. And so I'm going to have to give but it still does look pretty nice. And with all the different animals and stuff, I do like the artwork of The Wolf Among Us. And so I'll go ahead and give it a 68. How impactful was The Wolf Among Us? It wasn't really that impactful at all. I think I'll probably go ahead and give it a 35. How replayable is The Wolf Among Us? Well, with Telltale Games, every single decision you make matters, and there's so many different outcomes in the story, and you have to sort of find your way through the game. And so it definitely has replayability at least once, but it is a story mode game, so I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 60. How smooth is The Wolf Among Us? There's sort of like lots of lags that go into cutscenes, like it's sort of hard to explain. When it's starting to go into a cutscene, it gets to be not so smooth, or when you're starting to fight someone, it sort of just like stops for a second before it continues. And so there's lots of that. So I don't know if I would necessarily call it smooth. But I'll probably go ahead and give it a 50 for smoothness as well. Character a relationship. Now this is a big one because there's a ton of characters in The Wolf Among Us, and all of them are very well developed, very deep personalities. You sort of feel attached to each and every single one of the characters. It has one of the best character relationships in this entire tournament, and so I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 94. Sound for The Wolf Among Us. The sound is alright, but it's nothing spectacular. It's once again sort of like stop and go sort of sound, very patchy, if that makes sense in areas. It's sort of like patched up, sort of rough. It's very rough. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Very rough sounding video game, and so I'll probably go ahead and give it a 60. How original was The Wolf Among Us? This is one of the most original games out there because you're playing as a werewolf detective based off of different comic books. Snow White is in it. There's a whole bunch of different, like, talking frogs, pigs, all sorts of different stuff going into this game, and it all comes together really well. So it's a very original game. I'll give it a 96 for originality. How challenging was The Wolf Among Us? It's not challenging at all because you're going to be moving forward throughout the game anyways, no matter what happens. And so it's really not very challenging. You're just sort of watching a movie and making decisions. But I'll give it a 20 because you do have to reach the best outcome. There's different outcomes. There's bad outcomes and good outcomes. So you want to reach the best outcome. So I'll give it a 20. And it has no community whatsoever, at least nowadays. So, well, actually, when it came out, it did. So that's my bad. I'll give it a 30 because it did have a strong social media community when it came out. I know PewDiePie played it, and I believe Markiplier played it as well. So, there's that. Alrighty, guys. Now just to calculate and see the winner. So 94 plus 68 plus 35 plus 60 plus 50 plus 94 plus 60 plus 96 plus 20 plus 30. It equals 607. But remember, guys, Madden only got 552, so that is good enough to move on to the next round. The Wolf. Oh, it's just a Wolf Among Us. There we go. Alright, guys. So the next game is going to be Red Dead Redemption 2 versus Sniper Elite Volume 2 Remastered. So first of all, Red Dead Redemption 2. So Red Dead Redemption 2 has a Google rating of 96. The graphics are really, really amazing. It's very photogenic in Red Dead Redemption 2, very naturous. Obviously, it takes place in the Wild West, so there's tons of different nature. It's a very beautiful game in general. You're definitely going to want to take lots of screenshots. I've already said this in previous episodes, how good the graphics are in Red Dead Redemption 2. That's one of the selling points. And so I'll give it a solid, actually I'll give it a 91 for graphics. So we're starting off really well. How impactful was Red Dead Redemption 2? The impactful rating, I'll probably give it a 30 for how impactful it was. How replayable is Red Dead Redemption 2? Well, it does have an online mode, but the online mode wasn't nearly as good as the story mode. And I feel like the story mode is one of those games where after you know what happens in the end, you don't really necessarily need to play it a second time. And so since the story mode isn't entirely replayable and the online multiplayer isn't the best. However, a lot of people do enjoy the online multiplayer, so I'll go ahead and give it a 45. How smooth was Red Dead Redemption 2? Once again, the story mode, I think this is really what separates the story mode from the multiplayer. The story mode was extraordinarily smooth, very easygoing, very nice mechanics in the story mode. But then if you go into online multiplayer, it becomes extraordinarily rough. It's sort of the interactions with other online players at the time uh, are not smooth at all, but the story mode, which are what most people are playing, is smooth. So I'll give it a 65 for smoothness. Character relationship. This is a game with very good character relationships. It takes place as a sort of like a family bond sort of thing. You're not necessarily an actual blood family, but you're all together as a sort of camp, moving around, going on these missions together, moving across the United States with each other, trying to make it to retirement in this naturist island with each other. So you get to know your partners very, very well throughout the game. You sort of start to care for every single character in the game, including your own character has a very deep personality. And so I'll go ahead and give the character relationships a 88. So one thing I could wish that they would have done better with the characters is making the small characters could have been better in my opinion. That's why it's not in the 90s. Is the smaller NPCs around the cities could have been higher. How good is the sound in Red Dead Redemption 2? I don't have any problems with the sound, but since it's a cowboy game and not a modern game, there's not necessarily a lot of sound going on. Uh but the guns sound decent, the rifles sound decent, the horses sound decent, but there's just not a whole lot of sound there. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 40 for the sound. How original was Red Dead Redemption 2? I think anybody could have came up with a cowboy game, but nobody could have came up with that good of a cowboy game, and nobody could have came up with all the different stuff within that cowboy games, all the different missions, the entire storyline of it was very intensive. So that part was original. Just the very basics of okay, you're a cowboy king, you're a cowboy in this camp that's moving around. That's not original at all, but the different missions are very original. So I'll go ahead and give it a 65 for originality. How challenging was Red Dead Redemption 2? So I think it was definitely challenging enough, but I think it was sort of like it was sort of rough and patchy when it comes to the challenging parts. It was just kind of like annoying at certain parts. Some parts were easier than you wanted it to be, and some parts were perhaps a little bit harder than you wanted it to be. So it became a little bit annoying. But I'll also give this a 7. I guess I'll yeah, I'll give the challenging aspect a 70. And the Red Dead Redemption 2 community, it does have an online game mode, but it doesn't necessarily have the best community, but it does have a decent community. I'll go ahead and give the community a 60. Alrighty, guys, so 96 plus 91 plus 30 plus 45 plus 65 plus 88 plus 40 plus 65 plus 70 plus 60. So Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming in with a score of 650. I forgot how much the Wolf Among Us got. So the Wolf Among Us got 607. And the Red Dead Redemption 2 is getting a score of 650. Alright, guys, the next game is going to be Sniper Elite Volume 2. So Sniper Elite Volume 2 Remastered has a Google rating score of 93. The graphics are decent. They don't necessarily have blow away graphics, but I'll go ahead and give it actually a 75 for graphics. How impactful was Sniper Elite Volume 2 Remastered on my life? I'm going to have to give that a 0. It definitely was not impactful at all in my life. Actually, no, I'll go ahead and give it a 10. Replayability, I don't think it has any replayability at all, especially because Sniper Elite 4 or 5 came out sort of along with like a year or two in between. So I definitely don't think there's that much replayability. I think it would just go to 4. And so I think replayability is a 10. How smooth is Sniper Elite Volume 2 Remastered? It's not very smooth at all. It's supposed to be a challenging sniper game, so it can be very rough at parts. And so I'm going to give it a 38 or 38 for smooth. Character relationship. I sort of feel like you're just sort of moving through Berlin, and there's not very much character relationship at all within the game. And so I'm also going to go ahead and give it a 40 for character relationship. How good is the sound? Well, the guns sound really amazing. The voices sound alright. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 65 for sound. How original is a World War II Battle of Berlin sniping game? The answer is not original at all, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 20. How challenging is Sniper Elite Volume 2? I think it's decently challenging. I'll go ahead and give it an 80 for how challenging it is. And it does not have any sort of community whatsoever, so it's going to be a 0. Alrighty, so 93 plus 75 plus 10 plus 15 plus 38 plus 40. Oh, okay, there we go. Plus 38 plus 40 plus 65 plus 20 plus 80 plus 0. Alright, so Sniper Elite Volume 2 is the lowest game. It has a score of 442. And so Red Dead Redemption 2 will be moving on. Alright guys, so the next game is going to be Overwatch versus a Breakpoint. Guys, so Overwatch does not have a Google rating. So if you times its Xbox rating of 4.2 out of 5 by 20, you get 84 out of 100. So Overwatch is going to start off with 84 points. Graphics in Overwatch are decent. They're very, very mid. I'm going to go ahead and give them a 70. How impactful was Overwatch on my life? I had a best in real life friend that I played Overwatch with for a couple of years. And so it definitely made really good bonding experiences. It was something I was really good at. It definitely made a good impact on my life. So I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 40. Replayability of Overwatch is extraordinarily high because it's a fast-paced multiplayer game. I'll go ahead and give it a 90 for replayability. How smooth is Overwatch? Again, it's very sort of mid. I think I'm going to give it a 76 for the smoothness of it. Character relationship. So there's a ton of characters in Overwatch. There's a ton of characters that you can sort of fall in love with because of their looks or how they play, but you don't necessarily know the personal soul of these characters. You don't necessarily feel for the characters. You're not necessarily have any sort of feelings or any sort of in touch with the characters at all. And so there's no character development in Overwatch at all. And so I'm going to have to give the character a 50. Alrighty, so sound in Overwatch is, again, it's very like high end, like upper middle sort of thing, like the 70-80 range of sound. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 75 for sound. How original is Overwatch? It was extraordinarily original in my opinion. I don't think anyone could have necessarily came up with that exact same game. So I'll go ahead and give it a 88 for originality. So I think the shooting and just having a shooting game in general is not necessarily that original. How challenging is Overwatch? Again, isn't so it's very intensive, fast-paced 5v5, trying to stop or trying to go or trying to push on your team, on the opposing team. You're trying to figure out tactics on how to win every single game. It's different, so it's a very fun form of challenging. I'll go ahead and give it a 95. And the Overwatch community, I'll go ahead and give a 85 overall to the Overwatch community. It has a very, very strong social media community and online and mics. Alrighty, so we have 84 plus 70 plus 40 plus 90 plus 76 plus 50 plus 75 plus 88 plus 95 and plus 85. So we have 753 for Overwatch. So a very high score. For Overwatch at 753. And then the next game is Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint. So Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint has a Google rating of 74. The graphics on Ghost Recon Breakpoint are really nice and realistic. I'll give it a 85 for graphics. How impactful it was Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint on my life? Not very at all. I'll go ahead and give it a 15 maybe. The replayability of Ghost Recon Breakpoint is not high at all. I don't think you have to play Ghost Recon Breakpoint twice at all. But you'll keep on going back to it until you beat it, and so I'll go ahead and give it a 20. How smooth is Ghost Recon Breakpoint? I would say it's pretty smooth. I'll go ahead and give it a 70 for smoothness because there are points where it could be necessarily smoother. Character, a relationship, I definitely think it could be deeper. I think I could have felt more towards the characters than what I did. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 30 for character relationship. Sound was all right. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 70 for sound. Originality, this was not a very original game. It was pretty much a copy and paste of Ghost Recon Wildlands. Obviously, it was Ghost Recon Wildlands versus Ghost Recon Breakpoint, so they're both Ghost Recon games, and they're both Tom Clancy games, so obviously it should be a sort of a copycat. But with that being said, it's just not original at all, and I feel like most people could have came up with it or at some point, and so yeah, I think for originality, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 40 because there are original aspects. The challenging, I think it's a good amount of challenging aspects to it. I'll go ahead and give it an 88 for how challenging it is. And the Ghost Recon Breakpoint community is also very non-existent. So I'll actually give it a 15 for the community. We have 74 plus 85 plus 15 plus 20, 15 plus 20 plus 70 plus 30 plus 70 plus 40 plus 88 plus 15. So we have 507 points for Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Giving Overwatch basically a 250 point win. So Overwatch is moving on to the next round. Alrighty, guys. So the next game is going to be NBA 2K22 versus Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. So we'll start off with 2K22. It has a Google user rating of 83. Graphics wise, I think the graphics for a sports simulator game on 2K22 couldn't really get any better. With that being said, it is a sports simulator, but the thing is for the Ultimate Team, you can design your very own stadium, you can design your own apartment and career mode, so there's lots of designability. You can design your character's clothing from different major brands, you can use different basketballs and when you're playing in the park or when you're playing in your apartment. So there's tons of custom abilities for 2K22, and I just believe that in general the graphics look really, really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and give the graphics a 93. How impactful was NBA 2K22 on my life? Well, just NBA 2K in general has been very impactful because it's definitely helped me build relationships over the years. So I'll give its impact rating a 65. How replayable is NBA 2K22? It is extraordinarily replayable and come back to a bull. And so I'll go ahead and give it an 88. How smooth is NBA 2K22? It is extraordinarily smooth, fast-paced, and easygoing. There's not very many bugs or very many problems in 2K22 that I've faced so far this year, and so I'll give it a 85. Character relationship. So I feel like you do sort of feel a very personal connection to the character that you build and spend time with in career mode. You because of those customizability options, you can make him wear certain clothes, and just how he plays in general. I feel like when you spend time on the game, you're going to be building a relationship with your player, and if you spend time building your own custom team and my team, you do sort of build a bond between you and your team in a way. So it definitely does do a good job at that. And so I'll go ahead and give it an 85. Actually, no, just an 80 for character relationship. So sound in NBA 2K22, I think they did a really good job with the soundtrack in NBA 2K22. There's not necessarily any complaints. The game sounds in general are really nice. 2K TV has really nice sounds to it, so the announcers are really nice, like Madden. It does have nice announcing, in my opinion. So I think the sound is probably going to be an 80 because I think it could have a better sound clip and a soundtrack and could have better announcers. I do think that Madden has better announcers than 2K. Alrighty, guys, originality of 2K22 is probably because there's a lot of different game modes in 2K22, and the custom options are very unique. So I don't think any other basketball game could have done everything that 2K has done. And so for that, I'll give it a 30 because everyone could do basketball, but no one could do 2K. How challenging is 2K22? It becomes very, very annoying how challenging it is, especially in the beginning of the year in career mode, because it is sort of pay to win. They want you to pay to win and buy VC, and for that, I'm probably going to go ahead and give it a 30. And the NBA 2K community I find to be extraordinarily toxic. They won't play with you if you're even like slightly lower than they are. They always want to play with people who are better than them. And so it can be a very, very toxic community in my opinion. And so I'm probably going to go ahead and give it a 30 because here's the thing, there is a very large community for it. There is a lot of people on the mics, on the headsets in the game, and there is a very strong social media community to it. Alrighty, guys. So NBA 2K22, 83 plus 93 plus 65 plus 88 plus 85 plus 80 plus 80 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30. Alright, guys, so NBA 2K22 has a final score of 664. Alright, guys, going to Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Alright, guys, so Rainbow Six Siege has a Google rating of 94. So it's pretty good. I think the graphics on Rainbow Six Siege definitely could be better. It could be more detailed inside of the maps. It could be, I guess, more smoothed out, but I think it is really, really good. I think I came off really negatively when I said that, but it is actually really good for what it is. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and give the graphics an 80. Impactful. Rainbow Six Siege is the most impactful game of my life. I played it all through high school. I've made so many relationships through it. I've done a ton of YouTube videos on it. It's helped me build relationships with other people. It's just the sort of grind set mentality that it put me through. It put me through a whole lot of different mindsets. I feel like it's had a very, very major impact on my life personally. And so for that, I think I'm going to go ahead and give Rainbow Six Siege a 100 out of 100 score for its impactfulness on my life, because it really cannot be underestimated, and I feel sort of emotional about giving it any less than 100, and so I'm just going to have to give it a 100 for that. Its replayability, it's a very replayable game because it has a stealth aspect to it, but it's also fast paced, if that makes sense. So each round is only 3 minutes, but you can only die once per round, and if your entire team dies, then you lose, and so you really cannot die, and so it gives it a very large stealth aspect to it. With only 3 minutes, you do have to be sort of fast about it, and so it's very, very replayable in my opinion. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 97 for its replayability. How smooth is Rainbow Six Siege? I feel like there are some aspects where it's not entirely smooth. That's one of my problems with it. But it is still pretty smooth. The shooting is pretty smooth. The walking is pretty smooth. There's not very many bugs or glitches at all in it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and give it an 82 for its smoothness. Character relationships. There are bios for every single character, and there are, I think, like 100 different characters in Rainbow Six Siege or something like that, and they're constantly adding new characters, so they do a good job with characters in the game. However, I feel like I could have a bigger connection to the characters, and I should have a bigger connection given how much I play the game. And so for that, I'm a little bit disappointed, and I feel like they just don't do a good enough job tearing at your heart and tearing at your emotions with the characters in the game. Because it's a multiplayer game, so they don't necessarily have to. But with that being said, I'll probably go ahead and give it a 65. Yeah, because there's so many different characters, and all the characters do have bios. Alrighty. So for sound, I'm not a huge fan of the sound. I think some things might be too loud and some things might be too quiet. Uh, and there's not a whole lot of sound overall in general. It's a pretty quiet game in general. So I think I'm going to go ahead and give the sound a 50. The originality of Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, I feel like is extraordinarily original for a first-person shooter, but it is just a first-person shooter, and it is just a 5v5 first-person shooter. So the basics have been done before, but Rainbow Six Siege in its entirety really cannot be duplicated. And so I'll go ahead and give it a 70 for its originality. The challenging aspect to Rainbow Six Siege is one of the things that originally sells players on is because you're constantly trying to get better at this very difficult game. It's something that you're not used to. You're not used to playing these stealth but yet fast-paced video games. And so most people are very, very horrible when they first start off. And then they get better and better and better and better and better. And by the time you're a veteran, you become very, very good at the game. And so I think the challenging aspect is one of the things that they try to sell you on, and it's one of the things that they do extraordinarily well, and it's very fun to try to get good at. So I'll give it a 92. Community, I think the Rainbow Six Siege community has gotten worse over time just because there's less people on mics today than there was when it first came out for whatever reason. I think it's mainly because of communication bans on Xbox and stuff. I feel like people feel like they need to be in a party so they can truly communicate with people. These people get banned for such stupid things on Xbox. But for community, it is still a really good community. I find it very easy to talk to people on Siege. I feel like if you play Siege for an entire day and you ask people to invite you to parties or whatever, or you try to communicate with anybody, you'll probably find yourself a new friend by the end of each and every single day of playing Rainbow Six Siege. And that's not something I can say about any other game on this tournament list. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Rainbow Six Siege community a 85 out of 100. Alrighty, guys. So our last game, Rainbow Six Siege. Let me go ahead and bring out my calculator. 94 plus 80 plus 100 plus 97 plus 82 plus 65 plus 50 plus 70 plus 92 and plus 85. So that puts Rainbow Six Siege at 815 points. And it goes into the next round. RB6 Siege in the next round. Alrighty, guys, so there you have it, our final 8. So for the north side, we have Apex Legends going up against Far Cry 5. GTA 5 is going to be going up against Call of Duty Black Ops 3. The Wolf Among Us is going to be going up against Red Dead Redemption 2. Overwatch is going to be going up against Rainbow Six Siege with entirely different criteria in the next video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Oh, and if you guys wanted to go ahead and vote, follow me on Instagram at Big Soul Doge. The link is going to be in the bio because one of the criterias for voting is going to be who my followers on Instagram decides goes on to the next one. That's going to be one of the criterias. Whoever wins that is going to be winning some points for the next criteria list, but that's not going to be the only thing. So make sure you go ahead and stay tuned for the next video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.